All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind-Body Relationship, where we talk about the mind, the body, and the relationship. All right. And today we have our special guest, Marissa, back with us.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. And you have some exciting news.
I am officially done the practicum portion, except for a few little tweaks to graduate, and then I'm done school.
Wow. And what are your plans?
Good question.
Good question.
I'm not really sure. I thought I had a solid, I like to be a planner, and then coronavirus happened. And so now things are just coasting, taking it day by day.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see then.
Yeah, not sure. See where it goes.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of the practicum experience is not only supervision, right? But it's also to do with learning how to, in essence, supervise yourself, right? Because going forward, the truth of the matter is you're on your own recognizance.
Yeah. And the nice part is you still get check-ins, you still have supervision. That's good.
Exactly.
But yeah, really being able to take leadership for yourself is huge.
It is, for sure. And one of the things in which I do is to do with an art therapy technique, which is to concentrate on the self-portrait. Now, the truth of the matter is everything we do is actually really a self-portrait.
Okay.
Right? So drawing is a way in which we express ourselves. And there's many ways in which we express ourselves. Not only how it is that we do our hair, right? How it is that we dress, how it is that we talk. I mean, everything is about our self-concept. Especially as a therapist.
Yeah. And then really pushing to make sure that we take care of that self-concept.
Exactly. So part of that is to do with a self-reflective practice, right? In order to pay attention to ourselves, to know when it is that we're balanced, when it is that we're off balanced, right? And there's all these different areas, not only in professional life, but personal life as well, that all contribute to who it is that we are.
Making sure we do it so that we're not just preaching it to a client, we're really taking care of ourselves at the same time.
Which can be actually really very difficult.
Yeah, it's very easy to tell someone else to do it and then realize when you start to get run down or you're starting to feel tired that it's because you haven't been doing what you're sharing and what you're telling people that they should be trying.
So true. And has that been a part of your learning while it is that you've been doing your practicum?
Yes. So I started out with a really strong game back in January. I was ready to go. I was taking care of myself. I was doing well. And then February, March happened and I was like, oh, Laurie, I'm really falling apart. I don't know what's going on. And then looking back, I was like, okay, I'm not doing the stereotypical self-care, which is exercise. I wasn't making sure I was getting the sleep. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't doing any self-reflection to realize I wasn't doing those things.
Isn't that interesting how it is that happens? Yeah. There's an excitement to what it is that we do. And I think that it's easy when it is that you get involved with whatever it is that gives you energy to think that you're actually really getting energy from it. And the truth is the opposite actually really starts to happen.
Yeah, and I found that I almost felt guilty for doing that part during that time. I was like, no, this is an hour I could be spending on client prep or I could be researching. And then because I worked full time during practicum, my time was very limited. And I was just like, no, I shouldn't be taking that hour to do this. And then you realize it flipped all of a sudden when I had hit a point where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It flipped to be like, no, that is more important than that right now. Making that time is highly necessary.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. So this is a process which forces a person, any professional really, it doesn't have to be a therapist, doesn't have to be an art therapist per se, it could be any kind of professional, to look at yourself in essence, right? Looking in a mirror for just a short period of time, right? Part of it is to do with journaling, to really get in touch with what's going on for you. The next part of that is actually really drawing it out, right? And that is really representative of a moment in time. And the way in which we did it was just at the end of a work week, right? And then over a period of time so that you can reflect back on, has there been any change occurring?
And what was really neat is I actually did like a very similar first week and last week. And then I could see the difference in how I was reflecting. You'll see it when we talk about it, but it was very neat to kind of tie it all in at the end of the month.
Yeah. How did you find the process itself?
The first week, I found it a little weird. To sit there and be like, okay, how do I see myself right now? Where am I at? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to go there yet. I didn't know what it was like. And then once it started, it was like, oh, you can add this and you can add this. And it became really easy. But that first blank page, staring at it was a little bit intimidating.
It is very much so. There's a need to avoid.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You found that? Yes. You want to actually really put yourself down on paper, because once it is that you do that, it makes it concrete.
It was concrete, and knowing I had to talk about it with someone else was also a little bit like, okay, if I just did it myself, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have done it. Because I would be like, oh, it'd be easy to be like, oh, I can do that the next day. I can do it the next day. Versus being like, there's a deadline and I'm having someone to make me accountable.
There you go. Interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you were just saying that you were not an artist.
I am not an artist.
Right.
I like craft things in other ways. Drawing is not my strong suit.
Not your strong suit. If you were to choose a medium, what would the medium be?
Probably scrapbooking.
Scrapbooking. Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Cutting and gluing and making things like that. Like a puzzle I like, but
right.
To actually be like, I want it to look like this, it never comes out like my brain says it should.
Well, I think that that's really important, right? Because drawing is a medium, mm-hmm. right? And then there's a choice of materials. It looks like you've chosen marker.
Yeah, I used Sharpie because that was what I was using for another project at the time, and then I just stuck with it because it was consistent.
Very good.
I thought about going a little bit further into like collage type stuff, but just for a time restraint on where I thought I could actually tackle it and get it done, I chose pen and paper. Or marker and paper.
Yeah, and the goal is actually really to make it a simple process, right? So that it's easy, not time consuming. Right? And so, did you find it that way?
Yeah, I'd say all of them. The first one took me longer, but the rest of them, I'd say 20 minutes.
Very good.
And then some reflecting and journaling type stuff after, obviously, but that wasn't this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes. And part of the process of practicum is to do a videotape of yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. And so you got the opportunity to do 3. Did you do more than 3 or just the 3?
I did a couple more in the sense of wanting to see how things landed.
Oh, okay.
So like a new skill, being like, how do I do it? But I think I recorded the whole hour. I listened to that chunk. I didn't listen to the hour.
Oh, okay.
Versus those 3, the first one was an actual video.
Right.
And then with COVID, the next 2 were audio recordings. They weren't video. So it was very different to see them.
Oh, I bet. And did you find what it was that you were able to reflect on the videos? Because that's just a different way in which to do this, right? It's actually really an in-session way in order to pay attention to, the process of counseling. What did you find with that?
I found my first instinct was to be hard on myself and kind of pick it apart, which I think is very typical when we talk to clients. That's their first go-to. And then you're trying to I've been trying to encourage my clients, like, okay, let's flip it. How can we do it? And I found, when I first watched that video, I didn't try to flip it. So it was, again, not taking my own advice and those tools that I'm teaching others. And then by the second and third, I'm like, I could have done this, but I didn't do it in the moment because I wasn't aware. And that's something I can do next time. So it was a really big flip.
Yeah, and as it is that you, over your practicum, had the opportunity to do that, to record yourself, did you find that there was progress? Did you find that there was change?
For sure. There was a change in the way that I wasn't jumping in and asking questions, actually being able to formulate. Even my voice, the first couple times, being so nervous, and then being able to be like, okay, it was just another thing. We just record ourselves. It's what we do. And you could hear it in the voice. I could hear it in the way that I was closing and ending sessions, just being more natural. And I think that just came with time.
Yes. Getting used to it. Calming the body.
Yes, which is not my strong suit in the very beginning. I don't know how many times you've told me to slow down since the very beginning.
It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, how about if we have a look at the artwork?
All
right. So this is our first one. So this is a progressive process, right? So we have our 4 right here, just like this.
Yep.
So we'll be able to show this to everyone. All right. So this is the first one. So tell me about this one.
This is a very hard week. So when you actually asked me to start, it was on a week where I was feeling overwhelmed. I didn't know which way to go. And I was full. That's the only way I could say it. My brain felt full. So there's absolutely like no little spaces. They were filled in with kind of zapping little thoughts.
Wow.
So the orange was the little like racing thought.
Yeah, interesting. Because you have, well, first off, black and red, which is generally speaking, when people use black and red to do with, danger.
Black's also my favorite color, so it's also hard.
And it's outlined, right? So you've just got that outline and really nothing except for what it is that you've documented in your brain. Yeah.
And that's where I felt it didn't feel like anything else mattered at that point. My brain was so taken over of what everything else was happening.
Wow. And so what do you feel when you look at that?
I feel like a lot of those are still applicable to where I'm at right now. Like grass was because I was dealing with severe allergies this year. I'm still having trouble with allergies. It's still impacting me, but it's not the forefront of my mind. So.
Well, you certainly look like you've got a lot going on.
Yes. And then I tried to make it a little bit better with the dog because that's like my jam. But it's also that he takes time and it takes more energy and that kind of pulled away from what was going on and took up space in the brain at that point too.
Interesting. Yeah. And sometimes that's what happens, right, with self-care strategies. There's work involved to force yourself to, in essence, do them to take care of yourself, like with anything. All right. Let's have a look at the next one here. Very similarly organized, very central. You're very central, right? Meaning that is the one thing that you're paying attention to, which is your head.
Yes.
And this is very different. It looks like a yoga pose with a lotus.
So this week I had started implementing yoga into my routine and making sure I did it.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that was a big turnaround point to get me from being so full. But then I still, I was experiencing a knee injury, which is why I stopped running and I jumped into yoga. And then I have a wrist issue, so that was also pain. And then it's still sometimes there's good things in your head and sometimes it's like you're being really hard on yourself. So I kind of just let it out.
Interesting. With the use of a lot of words, right? Oh, wow. So what are all the words about?
Every other one was just little self mantras, things that I did well, things that I believe in, things that I need that are keeping things positive. And then the other ones were things that I feel I do too often or is negative in somebody else's eyes or things that I've been told and things that strip you apart. Interesting.
So there's a theme.
Thoughts. Yes. I think that was right through. It was thoughts. Little bit of body with the pain, but it's mostly the mind.
It's mostly the mind and a lot of emptiness still. Yeah. Interesting. All right. And here we have our third artwork. Very similar as well. Central and yet off-center.
Which is weird for me because my tendency is to be it's got to be right in the middle. It's got to be right. So that was different.
And tell me about this one, because this one is actually really very, very different than the other three.
I think this is the one where it's a little bit of kind of that imposter syndrome.
Oh.
Feeling like I'm supposed to be able to help somebody else when I didn't feel like I could help myself at that point. Not in a super negative way, but just in being self-critical and feeling like you're sad on the inside, but you're forcing yourself to wear this happy mask on the outside so that nobody else knows that you're upset.
Interesting.
Because there's this crazy concept in psychotherapy, as you know, that we're always on.
Yes, you know everything.
We don't feel emotions. It's not that you don't, but that they're hidden.
Yeah.
And they were really coming out that week, and I was feeling very overwhelmed.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And you definitely look it, right? And it's interesting, just as it is you're saying about your injuries and how you have positioned yourself, because it almost looks injurious.
defeated.
Yeah, like you have injuries. And it's interesting in regards to your arms, right? What's happening with your arms?
I'm not sure. They're just out.
They're out. Yeah. I mean, it's almost
Support.
like as if they're dislocated.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
They're coming out too high.
Yeah. And this one, it actually really looks like there's movement. There's a flow with the dress. There's a flow with the hair. And there's actually really, the lines are not as specific.
Yeah,
Right?
it was more like sketched versus straight.
Interesting, eh? So there's actually really movement happening within this one, it looks like.
That's not in any of the other ones.
Yeah. And it's interesting also, too, the way in which you've drawn your face, because it almost looks like you've got tears.
Because that's how I felt. Like I was crying a lot that week.
Oh,
and it just felt like, it's like, okay, suck it up. Now you're on. Like you had to put that mask on and separate it.
Yeah. And you've drawn yourself, in essence, cornered.
Yeah. Didn't even think about that. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And yet, very interesting, too, in regards to all of your artwork. Floating, grounded. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't know. It's so weird to have somebody else work through it with you and like pick up on things you don't realize, right?
Yeah. And even in these ones, there is no background, right? There's no sort of like point of reference.
Yeah, but that one's got the wall and the floor.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to your fourth one here, which is your last one, which you said was actually really to do with something very similar to your starting point.
So just realizing that there was balance, I think was the big piece. So yes, the head still feels full. It's not that I'm not, but there's strengths in it. It's not just all the things that are going wrong, which was what I felt like I was doing over here.
Yeah.
It was those things that I've been able to recognize in this journey that I'm like, okay, I can do it. I am compassionate. So when I'm feeling like I can't give myself because I'm wearing a mask, I still did it.
Right.
I'm still feeling for someone else and I was able to get through it. There were so many different things, but it's just recognizing what I can do instead of what's taking up space.
Yeah, and also, too, that it's not all squished in the brain any longer. It's becoming a part of who it is that you are, right? And also, too, you're concentrating on the positives, which is very interesting because even in this one, as it is that you're, in essence, becoming centered or paying attention to yourself, you've still got both going on. Very good. So there's a progress from here, squished, to here, figuring it out, to here, getting in touch with it. And then to here, actually really pulling on what it is that's most important to you. Yeah, what do you think when it is that you see that?
I think it's cool to see how far I come in 4 weeks. In 4 weeks of reflection, where you can get to. Because in the scheme of life, 4 weeks is not a long time. And it took maybe under an hour to do both aspects of this, one time a week. It's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, right? Because as therapists, what it is that we do is we concentrate on whatever it is that's happening in the room, right? Part of what it is that we do is to concentrate on how it is that we're feeling what's coming up for us, right? As a directive to where it is that we're needing to take things. But also, too, just like what you said, we're not center. We're sort of like separate then. And we leave a lot of who it is that we are at the door, right? But the truth is, it's not only what's happening within the counseling space, but what's happening within us, what's happening within our lives, right?
And I feel that really affects the questions or the reflection statements or those kind of things that we're making. As much as you're trying to leave it at the door, the things that you're asking a client about is really like, okay, I'm tuning into this because either I've been there and I understand that, or I want to learn more because I have no idea, or I'm avoiding that because I can't go there right now. And then you have to come back and cycle through it when you're not in that state that you're avoiding it.
Very good. Yes. Well, the one thing that we can definitely say is you're a very black and white person.
Yes, I am. I like things to have clear answers and clear expectations, and apparently that comes out to everyone else.
The one thing, shades of gray.
Yeah, no, I don't do gray well. It's just funny because that was my name. I was a gray my whole life, and I was like, nope, nothing to do with gray.
Well, you've been working on it, right? I think even just to get in a little bit of red is like really something.
Yeah, and then you'll notice that faded off. And then it was just black.
Then it's just black and white. Back you go. Very good. Well, and you know what? Maybe that's the goal going forward, right? Not only getting in touch with the positives to know that you have those, right? And that you have things that you can draw on going forward, but actually really to create that sense of balance, that sense of calm, right? And that it is actually really all going to be okay.
Yeah, and recognizing it's like a roller coaster, right? Things aren't okay, but then they scoop back and you get okay, and then you have to work through it. Some of them are really big drops, and some of them are just little hills.
Very good. Yeah. Well, moving forward, maybe just a little bit of color.
That's scary to step outside the boundaries.
Perfect. Well, it would be interesting to see the scrapbooking as this progresses. But what do you think about having a technique that you can concentrate on that actually really gives you some insight as to how it is that you're doing self-care wise?
I think it's really neat. It might be something that I'd like to continue, like even once a month. Maybe it's not a weekly thing, because I feel like right now I'm in a good place. But recognizing that if I'm at a spot where I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed, maybe going back to that once a week or once every 3 days, depending on where I'm at. And then you can pull back and kind of like a maintenance program. You fade it out. And then, because it really made me reflect on how I was feeling back here.
That's very good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, it's just an interesting process, self-supervision wise, right? It's not only what it is that's happening within the counseling room, but the truth of the matter is, as a whole person, right, for a self-care strategy. Yeah, well, very good. Well, thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Laurie.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to learn more about this, I mean, please reach out, right? Give us a like, subscribe, and well, bye for now.